Ah, there's some turbo spool. Ah. I think we might have a winner here. Hi, I'm Pat, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to disassemble something that's inside of our BMW i8s just to see what's inside. The BMW i8 includes something called a resonator, or a sound deadener, that goes in between the air cleaner and the turbo. And this is strictly designed in order to reduce turbo noise outside the car. Well, I found this part online, and this came directly out of a salvage BMW i8. What that means is the salvage car was completely totaled and its parts were removed and then resold online. I got it for under $100. So what this does is it takes air in from the air cleaner and it sends air out to the turbo. There are two connections here, and these are vents for the gas tank and for the crankcase, but ultimately this thing is designed to quiet turbo intake noise. I found an article online that discusses just how this thing was designed and what it was designed to accomplish. So let's go over that now. So according to this article, this is a resonator made by DuPont, and it's designed to reduce the high frequency air intake sounds to improve the driving experience. So it's there to make sure everything is quiet, obviously. And it says that this is made of a high performance polyamide that is designed by DuPont, and it resists high temperatures, oil, and anything else that's under the hood that may potentially cause degradation. It says that this resonator was developed in close collaboration with BMW, DuPont, and MAN Hummel. It says that this part includes a two-piece injected molded assembly. There's a perforated interior tube as well as an outer tube. Taking a closer look inside, I can see that there's an insert, a center section that has a gap there. So it looks like it's definitely a two-piece design. So my thought is, take a Dremel tool, make a cut here, and see if we can pull out this section from the rest of the assembly. Taking a closer look at the top of the resonator where it connects to the air cleaner, it appears that there's a plastic weld here, like a hot piece of metal may have been placed here, allowing these two pieces to be placed together and then welded shut. So I'm wearing some personal protective equipment right now. I have my old Dremel here. Let's just see if I can make a slight cut into this and see what's inside. That was pretty thick. That area that was melted from this to this. I was hoping that I could just pull these two sections apart, because inside here I could feel a difference. Let me see if I can give it a push. Oh, there we go. Huh. I can actually pull this out. It looks like I'm going to have to file this down. Let me go ahead and file this down, and then we can pull the center section out of here. So you can see. So at this point, I should be able to pull this section straight out. And there's nothing in here. There's absolutely nothing in here. So this is the housing, and this is just a cage with a bunch of holes in it. So this is a sound deadener. I had assumed that there was some type of fiberglass material that was packed around this, but there's really nothing in it. And now that I've cut this apart, I want to try a quick test. Let's try something fun here. All right, for testing purposes, I have this elbow here. This connects between this resonator and the turbo. So those two pieces will mate together. And then there's a clip that holds them in place. There we go. So now we're actually able to have the solid connection between where the turbo would be and then the exit to the resonator. So I want to test what it's like to make turbo noises and blow into the end of this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my microphone here and just use the microphone on the camera. Okay, here goes. I'm going to be making turbo sounds that sound like... Now I'll remove the baffle and do it again. Now I've gone ahead and taken this baffled section and completely covered it in masking tape. So all the holes are now covered. So this replicates a straight through pipe. Let's put it back together and see what it sounds like. So there you have it. Those are the three different sounds that you're going to get out of this, leaving it stock, removing the baffle, or covering the baffle in tape. I got to admit, these are very, very cool results to be able to test and see exactly what this thing can do. So I think the next step now might be to actually install it on the BMW i8. So over the past few days, I've been trying to decide exactly how I want to close off the holes in this internal section. And of course, put some tape around this and made some sounds through it and decided that I would like to keep it closed off compared to just removing the baffle and keeping this straight through, because I don't want to disturb the air. As we could see down in here, there seems to be an area where it goes from wide to small. So we're going from small to wide to small, and I don't want to disturb the airflow. So I definitely want to keep this intact, but I just want to seal it off from having the air pass through these holes and dampening it. So I thought about using duct tape or something else that I could stick to this, but I'm concerned about heat, and I'm also concerned about if it gets too hot, is it going to melt? Is it going to cause a fire? I don't want any of that in the i8. So I found some very thin pieces of aluminum. This is very thin, sort of like a soda can, and this is designed for an air conditioning system if you want to run any type of duct work. This is a little bit bigger than this, so I have a set of tin snips, and I can cut this, and then I can cut it to length so it fits over top of the holes. And then I found some hose clamps, which then I can use, 2 hose clamps over the metal sections in order to clamp them down. And I'm going to see if this actually works. It does add a little bit of weight. These are light, but the hose clamps are a little bit heavy. But if I can clamp this down and actually secure the metal to this part of the pipe, I could place it inside, and then I could use some JB Weld, some epoxy here, in order to cap it off. And when that's done and it's all cured, it will then be ready to be put into the i8. Now, in order to get the i8 ready to install this, there are several steps that I have to perform in the service manual, and I'll go over those once this is complete. So this looks kind of weird, and it is a little bit heavier because the weight is with the clamps and not the aluminum. But now all these holes on the inside have been sealed off so that we no longer have the ability to baffle any of the sound. And I wanted to try to keep this as aerodynamically efficient as possible. I didn't want to remove this, obviously, and no longer have a straight pipe. Now, there could be some turbulence with some of these holes as the air does pass through, which is okay, but now we will not have any muffling effect. So I had to figure out a way to position these so it'll actually fit in the tube here. and this only goes in one way. There's like a little flat piece, and that goes up against the flat piece that's in here. So that sits in there just perfect. And this cap here, of course, I had cut it with a Dremel in order to release it. So now I have to glue it back on. And it does sit perfectly in place. There are some ridges in here that capture the center baffle, and it does have a tiny little gap in there that now I can use some epoxy in order to glue this back together, and it will not come apart. So this now should be a direct replacement for what's in the BMW i8, and then that way I can test whether or not I'm going to get any type of turbo sounds out through the intake. So in order to get the old Resonator, the old muffler, intake muffler, off of the i8, ended up taking this fan out, which sits right here, literally right here, to evacuate air out of the i8. And if we take a closer look, you're going to see a bunch of tubing right here, and that's it. That tubing is what connects to the Resonator. And there's nothing else back here. Literally everything between the engine and the trunk, as that's what we're looking at over here, is literally empty. The only thing that fits in there is a Resonator. It's so weird. So in order to get this fan out of here, there's just 3 bolts and it unplugs. It's real easy to pull out. But getting the little hoses off of these attachment pieces right here, which are ultimately going to go on here, that took a lot of time. And I didn't film any of it because I wasn't sure what I was getting into. The service manual suggested that I do everything from the top. So we did exactly what the service manual said by, removing top of the airbox. It even said to remove the bottom of the airbox, but I left it in there. And I'm glad I did because I didn't need to take it out. There's plenty of room in order to get out what I needed to get out. So this is nearly impossible. I was down there previously. That's where the wheel is located. And down here, there we go. That's the inside of the engine bay opposite the trunk. So, here's your trunk, right? And that's where this intake tube sits. And it literally takes up the entire space and connects over here to the airbox right there. So it connects to the airbox there, and it connects to the turbo down below. So the turbo is right below this area, and in fact you'll see that large diameter tubing. That is the charge pipe that goes up to the intake of the engine. So right below that is where the turbo is located. So let's go back underneath. So that black tube right there, this big black one right here, that goes into the turbo. Up here with this green seal, that's where it connects to this intake Resonator that I pulled out, and at the other end it goes into the turbo. So the turbo sits down there, and underneath there is our exhaust, and that's what you see on the opposite side over there. You can see an O2 sensor, I think, sticking vertically straight up. That is the catalytic converter. Over here is our charge pipe that goes up to our intake. So there's not a whole lot in here. It literally fits in here very tightly, and in order to unplug everything, I had to work from the top. So I had to just squeeze my hand in between the engine and the enclosure here and do what I can in order to get this pipe out of here. So I'm going to put this pipe back in here, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to film it. I'm going to give it a try. I will try from the top and see if I can film it from this direction. Now, I'm going to get it onto the connection that goes to the turbo There we are. That seemed to snap right in. Okay, that started. That one started. And that one has started. Okay, so I'm going to give this a push. And give this one a push. Okay, and then this one. And this has a connector on it for like a temperature sensor. So I got to make sure the temperature sensor also lines up, which I believe it is lined up. Feels like it anyway. Okay. Now, I have to verify that the electrical connector is connected, and then we should be good to go as far as those connections are concerned. The next will be the air box. Okay, so what are we looking at? Way down, upside down. This is the end of that pipe that I just installed, and we're still upside down here. You can see way down in there, that's our pipe that goes to the intake side of the turbo. So literally you got to squeeze your hand down in here and work almost blind. Those are the connectors that I plugged on top of that clean air pipe right there. So right now I got to connect this to the air box, but I got to put the air filter in and then reconnect the mass airflow sensor. Then after that, I need to go out here and connect the fan back up. Now all this stuff will finally be in place. I can put the cover on this and I can start it up here in the garage just to see what it sounds like. Put the air cleaner back in the car. All right, then the air box. So this should skirt right in there pretty easily. Get it in all the way. There we are. Now clamp. Okay, now I have to get the flexible piece tightened both around the airbox and around this intake tube. Flathead screwdriver, and we'll tighten it up. Okay, and then the connection for the mass airflow sensor. Okay, so air box, mass airflow sensor, pipe for cold air intake, and I'm just verifying that all the connectors and everything look good from up here. Okay, now we have our fan, and this fan blows outward when the engine's running. So I'm going to get it into position where it should be. Let's see, they also say to plug it up first, so I'm going to go ahead and insert the connector into the fan. Here we go. Yep, that's all the way in, and it mounts here just like that. Okay. our fan is installed. Now, just making sure all the wiring is out of the way. It's not going to hit anything. That's the important part. And it all looks good. Okay, here goes the engine. Okay, so our engine's running. Our little fan spinning. It's pulling air from here across over to the other side. I don't see any problems. We didn't have any check engine lights. So now the next thing is going to be to see if it actually makes a decent sound. Oh. Let's see. Let's see if it's any different. Ah, there's some turbo spool. Ah. I think we might have a winner here. So here I am at a red light. I'm going to pull out. And I can hear with each shift of the gear, once the engine is under load, but it's at a low RPM, I can hear that intake. I can hear that turbo. It's been a few days since I've installed this, and I gotta tell you, I really enjoy it. A few people are gonna ask me, why in the world would you do this to your car? Why do you want to make it sound like this? And to be honest, a lot of work has gone into making the car as quiet as possible. Engineers have spent a lot of time trying to figure out ways to quiet this car down. However, I'm the type of owner that actually wants to hear these things in his cars. So this may not be right for you, but other people may actually want to perform this modification. I will tell you, this requires a lot of time. You do have to be extremely careful because you're dealing with plastic parts, you're dealing with electronics. If you do disassemble this, you put it back together wrong, you can screw things up. So I tried to take a very conservative approach as to how I was going to make this modification and test it. And then if it was going to be something I wanted to leave on the car for a long period of time, well, I would feel comfortable with that. And that's why I went with the aluminum and the hose clamps and using the epoxy as well. So it's on the car and I enjoy it. I think it sounds pretty cool. So one of the reasons that I really enjoy having this on the car is that it makes the car sound real. The fake noises that are generated in the BMW i8 just sometimes don't fulfill that passion for a thrill, for something different, new. And we have to seek out other cars in order to get that. Well, that's not the case anymore. We can make minor modifications to the i8 and it actually sounds good. For example, if you watch any video with somebody that has a McLaren with the roof scoop, let's say like Street Speed 717 for example.
That noise is just, there is nothing else like it in the automotive world. There's nothing like that noise. Never felt anything like it, never heard anything like it. I got Darth Vader behind me every time I let off the gas. It's so good.
When he lets off the gas and he can hear that car breathing, it's cool. And it's cool to have it on the BMW i8 as well. In fact, if I had the opportunity to put a roof scoop on this, I might even do that. But this going a little bit too far. I don't want to create a whole lot of lift on the car. Also keep in mind that this modification was done after I've already modified the airbox, that flap that controlled how much air was actually coming in through the performance intake. That's been eliminated. So now that's not opening and shutting and causing the vehicle to, cut off that sound. So I'm getting full sound coming from the performance intake right now, that if you just decided to make this modification and not modify that flap, well, you're going to be disappointed. So there's a link in the description below on how to modify that flap as well. You'll also notice that I included the stock air cleaner in the car. I decided not to put any type of aftermarket air cleaner in it, and it still sounds great. There's absolutely no reason to go to something that's like a K&N air filter, because it's covered with oil, and as you suck up debris along that side of the car through the performance intake, it's just going to get dirtier quicker. So you're better off leaving the stock BMW air cleaner in the car. It will perform better, and it will actually still allow you to hear those turbo sounds through the intake. So what started off as an experiment to see what's inside this resonator turned into something that I think helps me hear the car a whole lot better. It helps me hear those induction noises. I love it. So this may be a modification you want to try. It's at your own risk here, because I obviously did this to my car without the intention of giving you a how-to to do it to your car. So whatever you decide to do on your i8, well, you can give it a shot, but at this point, it's really more of a test, and it's really at your own risk. You can also decide to remove this and replace it with a different pipe with different fittings on it for, the crankcase and the fuel, and I don't even know if that'll work. Really, the intention of this was to dig inside of this device and see what was in there, and then just play around a little bit with the intention of putting the stock one back on. I don't see a need to. I actually like the way it sounds. So if you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell for notifications, as I'll be posting more BMW i8 content. Thanks for watching, and happy motoring.